Welcome to Chat with Leaders. Our mission is to give resilient servant leaders a platform for sharing the inspiring things they're doing to lead their teams, customers, and themselves wisely. I'm Jeff Bond, Director of Client Services at Berry, and today's host. I'm joined by Dr. Reverend Jarrod Longbons, Senior Minister at Peachtree Christian Church in Midtown Atlanta. Jarrod, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
My pleasure. So I'm going to give a quick bio of Reverend Dr. Jarrod Longbons. He's the sixth senior minister of Peachtree Christian Church in Midtown Atlanta. It is over 90 years old, so that says quite a lot. He and his wife, Colleen, are natives of Central Illinois and have both been blessed to come from Christian homes. As a teenager, Dr. Longbons sensed the calling to vocational ministry and has never looked back. They have three beautiful children, one recently born, two girls, one boy. And we are, again, thankful to have him on the show.
Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to see your face.
Great. Well, it's good to see yours. And in full disclosure to all our listeners, I am a member and a leader within the church as the chair of deacons, and I didn't want to go through the whole conversation pretending that I wasn't, but I am so grateful for your leadership in this time of coronavirus and social distancing. You guys have done a remarkable job of staying in touch in an odd way, almost even more so than we were when we were all together, because you've just gone the extra mile to produce online content, streaming services, providing opportunities to continue Sunday school and fellowship. So thank you so much for the leadership. And I think it's a great example for other leaders, particularly in churches, to follow.
Well, and I thank you for yours because you're a part of that, and you're very much helpful in keeping us all connected, which is the key in this time.
Great. Well, as I said, this is a platform for sharing the inspiring things that leaders are doing to lead their teams and communities wisely, as well as themselves. So this is not a show about me, Jarrod. It's a show about sharing you and giving you a platform. We believe in being a good steward to our listeners' time, so we try to keep these conversations within 10 minutes. So I will be looking at a timer over here, making sure we're staying within those guardrails. But I wanted to jump into a little bit about what's inspiring you today in your leadership. So to start, just tell me a little bit about, I gave the bio, but a little bit more about your role as a leader within the church. How big is your staff? How big is your congregation? And what are some of the challenges that you're facing in light of COVID-19?
Well, the church is, 1,200 list of people who would say that that's their church home, but reasonably about 600 actively engaged, and that means about 400 attend on a Sunday, and given the way trends move these days. We have about 6 ministerial staff people. We have a total of about 13 administrative people, and then we have some more custodial staff. And I think the real challenge is our congregation really spans the age, all the demographics pretty broadly. We do have a lot of seniors. We have a lot of people in the nursery too, but being that we have a lot of people in the senior category who are more vulnerable during this time, we are trying to find ways to help them to not put themselves at risk. Some of our deacons have offered to help use their Instacart to help them, or some people have delivered groceries. And then some of those folks are also isolated at home by themselves. And so one of the things that I find is really, really important is to make sure that people are calling on them and having conversations to preserve the mental health of people who are unduly isolated. So I think that large gap of people is a challenge, and it's a blessing. And another thing to think about with this is just that a church is not a building, it is the people. And so how do you maintain that sense of a strong community when you can't be together? That's the main challenge.
I love that. And I love that you talked about mental health as well. Of course, a lot of people in this time have practical needs, particularly the people that are most vulnerable, our seniors. And it's great that your congregation and all its lay leadership is stepping up to help in any way that they can. Talk to me a little bit about mental well-being, particularly from a leadership standpoint. I talked a little bit before about leading yourself being kind of the key to all of this, and having a healthy mind and being physically healthy. I think in this time for leaders is important because you are shepherding the shepherds. so to speak. So
Hmm.
tell me, as a leader, how you're taking care of yourself mentally and what you're doing to kind of balance in your day-to-day leadership to make sure that you are there for your leaders.
There's a lot to say on that. I will tell you this. I, like a lot of people, am having a hard time because I'm so social. And, this is just tough. And I have kids to teach at home at the same time. And so I've had to do a lot of things. One, I'm not used to working from home like this. So I had to learn to put in some ritual about when I work and then when I don't work. Otherwise, I will just find myself perpetually on the clock. And when having that time of like setting everything down and walking away from work was the first step, I think, for my mental well-being. Um, Two, it's been taking walks every day. I'm very thankful that we're not going through this during the dead of winter, but getting outside and just having a little headspace. Myself, and I, or me and God, just breathing and taking it in. That's been very, very helpful. And then in my particular case, one of the tools in my toolkit, that's how I put it, has been to work in the yard and do some gardening to help other things grow and flourish during this time. Has been just a lifeline, and to reconnect with my food sources, even though I'm still buying food at the store. It's just like this great metaphor and lesson about our dependency on others and other things for our survival. So those are some things that I'm just doing for myself. And then on top, I would also say good conversation partners. So when the sky appears a little darker, I can pick up the phone and call someone and just be able to unburden myself. And I know that they're trustworthy people to hear, my gripes and my laments. So those are
Absolutely.
things that I'm
Well, we're
doing.
all in this together, and you can't be alone and isolated. I think a lot of leaders will get to that place where they feel like the burden is completely on their shoulders. And so it's great to have other people around you that can emotionally lift you up. And it's great that you're balancing your time. So it's great that you have that time outside of when you're working, but when you are, what are some of the challenges that you're facing? Again, how big is your staff? I think you said that before.
Well, of the ministerial team, it's about 6, and then we have about 12 with the admin team, and then there's custodial staff. I always have a hard time, but just about 20 people, I think, in total.
Got it. So, and out of those 20, I'm assuming you have a weekly meeting of some sort, and there's,
Yeah, we
collaboration that still needs to happen.
Yeah, we do. It's today, actually, our staff meeting at 1:30, and we do it on Zoom. And there's not a lot of business to tend to, so it's different than in an ordinary time where we go through a lot of logistics. This meeting begins by checking in with each other, making sure we're still connected. So communication is key, just to make sure that people are holding up well, and that they're feeling encouraged by me and by others by the work that they do. So we do a lot of praise talk in these meetings, and we also continue to fold in language of our own values in that praise talk. So we connect the praise with the values of our organization. And then I work with the other ministry staff on cultivating messaging videos, because in addition to our classes and services that we do online, we've been putting out videos and things of that nature just to try to help people be inspired or have just a moment of sanctity during the week, whether that could be a video of someone singing a song or a video of someone giving an uplifting message. So we're able to do that with our social media and our tools, so we make full use of them. Yeah.
That's great. And so this has probably drastically changed the way you go about your work week and how you plan for your Sunday services and how you engage with the team. And again, I think that you guys have responded incredibly well to this, and everybody has stepped up. It's been a collective staff and leadership effort. What do you foresee changing, perhaps permanently, for the future, and perhaps even for the better amidst all this social distancing, coronavirus? I mean, everything that's going on now that you've had to pivot in many ways. Is there anything that you think could and will change for the better?
Well, I hope that people don't take being together for granted like we did before. I hope it becomes more precious to us. I see more use of our of our digital platforms. I'm not wanting to replace going to church and being present with streaming. I think that that's a deficit for sure. However, Reverend Chambers, who's on our staff, he was starting a class this fall, and he was going to do it online because, as you know, Jeff, being here in Atlanta, driving down to Midtown on any given night is challenging. And so midweek courses, that's really hard to get, too many people. So he was going to play with doing something like this online. And the irony is, this has now forced people to learn how to use the tools who would have probably never given that a chance. And so they may now in the future have some boldness and say, yeah, I'll sign up for an online course. And so that might help us in the long run in that regard. But I'm really, on the other side, just hopeful that we begin to kind of reset our values as a society and see what's most important. And hopefully that means being together in a lot of ways.
Right. I've seen the hashtag go around lately of alone together or socially distant and spiritually connected. Both of those sayings have both had a significant meaning to me as I've felt in this time, whether it be in leadership or in just your interpersonal relationships. Remaining connected is the gift that we continue to give one another, but in an intentional way, right? I mean, we're so accustomed to sending quick messages and emails and texts to check in, and typically the text will say, how are you? I'm good. How are you? I'm good. Okay, great. We move on, right? So, but not that in-depth conversation of how can I help? How are you doing? You had mentioned a story to me about reaching out to your daughter's caretaker or their school.
Her teacher, yeah.
Her teacher. Tell us about that story and what was meaningful to her.
Well, she's a fantastic teacher, and she's trying to help us navigate this digital learning, which I think is remarkably challenging, especially when you have two parents that work full time and they're trying to keep their jobs by doing as much work as they can. And so I was venting to her on the phone, and she was just handling it well and being so supportive. And towards the end, I said, well, Miss Lee, what can we do for you? And she started tearing up, and she said, no one's asked me that. And I'm shocked because I see so many people helping so many in this time. But it was just, maybe she has always been on the phone kind of as the expert to people, maybe one people were going to with problems. And it didn't seem like anybody had actually thought to ask her that question. And so I just tried to, I said, do you need any groceries? Do you need any, do you need me to listen? And that was meaningful to her, I think. And it was to me as well.
Yeah, it's a question that we don't ask often. A lot of the times we're only considering our self-serving needs throughout the day, and particularly in this time where a lot of people feel isolated, or they're worried or scared, or they're just trying to get by amidst everything that's going on. Now is a better time, a great time, maybe more now than ever, to ask that question. So that's a great takeaway as a leader, and for something to ask your teams and your customers and everybody. I've heard that repeated often as I've spoken to the leaders in the market. Jarrod, this has been a great conversation. I feel like I could talk to you all day long, and I have had many conversations. But again, our goal is to keep these conversations brief and impactful. I think you discuss a lot of things here about leadership and verbal affirmations and communicating, and just the tools in your toolkit, as you mentioned, that have helped you continue to lead your staff and your team and your congregation this time. So thank you for that gift. Typically, I close the show with a call to action, but I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you to quickly think up of a call to action in light of this conversation that you would share with our listeners as they move forward in their leadership.
Well, I live by a mantra, which is, live to make everything around you and everyone around you flourish. So my call to action is to actually ask you to think about, what are you doing that helps other people be better? What are you doing that gives more life to people around you? And that might not be as complicated an answer as you might think. It might actually be using good words and actually praising people. It might be just saying thank you better than we've done before. So I would say that. And then the other call to action I'd say is practice gratitude. full as you can all the time. You'll find it help you with your mental health, but it's also something that is infectious. So be grateful and be grateful often.
Great words. Jarrod, tell our listeners how they can learn more about Peachtree Christian Church, yourself, or how they can get in touch with you over social, email, or whatever you prefer.
Yeah, my email is jlongbonds@peachtree.org, and our website is peachtree.org. As simple as that. You can stream us on the weekend. You can still actually see the services on demand or just hear sermons. Our Facebook page and our Instagram page, it's under Peachtree Christian Church, is our handle for all of that. But that has a lot of content, and we'd love to spend some time with you.
Excellent. Well, Jarrod, it was a gift to be with you today. Thank you for your gift of time, and we'll leave you with the thoughts that you said in closing before. I couldn't think of a better thing to say. Thank you for listening to Chat with Leaders.